Alright guys, so tonight we're going to talk about my company, Dollar Seed, and how we got to where we are today. I'm not going through the whole history of it, but kind of the legal battles we've been through. One of the first ones we had to do was we had to fight with eBay, Amazon sellers, Etsy sellers, and a few others that were using our name. They weren't selling our products because we don't let anybody sell our products, but they were using our name. And some of them weren't really doing very good as far as customer service goes. I'm not going to say we're great at it because we're pretty time consumed as it is. But these guys were terrible. So I had to reach out to a lawyer and I had to file to New York State or to United States Patent and Trademark Office to get our Dollar Seed name trademarked. I'm going to be honest with you, that's expensive, it's very timely. It took a couple of lawyers to pull it off before we finally got the trademark name for Dollar Seed, but we got it, okay? That was probably last year sometime. Now nobody can use my name. If they do, I just call the lawyer and say, hey, they're using my name, and automatically they're taken out. There's no questions asked about it. You will either shut down or you pay some major fines. Alright, so this year's been a real test for me because sales have been through the roof. As a sole proprietorship, any income the business makes is taxed to me at my regular rate, which is pretty outrageous to begin with. So what I did is I reached out and said, okay, well first of all, I don't know what I'm doing as far as dealing with the kind of money we're pulling in. I need an accountant. And along with that accountant was I also need a tax advisor. Along with that I also need some more lawyers working for me. So the ones that I went through, this is not a sales pitch for them, I'm not getting paid for this or anything like that, but they do work really well with me. It's 1-800-ACCOUNTANT. They are phenomenal. I have like weekly meetings with these people, both with my tax advisor, my accountant, and the legal team too, whenever there's need be. And one of the reasons why I needed that was because there was a lot of things going on in the business I needed to deal with. And the first one was, how much am I paying in taxes and what can I do to be able to save money? Well, as a sole proprietor business, I can make as much money as I want. I just have to pay as much money in taxes as they want. So I said, all right, well, what about going LLC? All right, well, LLC has its limits. One of the main LLC limits is you're only allowed to make up to $80,000 net profit per year as a single person, as a single member LLC. If you're married, you can make double that, $160,000. Well, I can do that in a month. So I'm like, yeah, that's not going to work out really well for me. So what else can I do? And they said, well, you can file LLC, but do your taxes as an S Corp. Alright, cool. What's that do for me? Well, that's a whole new ballpark. And I like it. An employee of the business. I have to collect a paycheck. What an S Corp does is I've wanted to do all along. Business owns the business. I'm the one that started the business. I'm in charge of the business. So for me to have to take a paycheck now is just like, that's a no-brainer. So I said, alright, let's do that. Alright, so when I did that, the first step to doing that is you have to file for an LLC with the Secretary of State, or New York State Department of State, Divisions of Corporations, State Records, and Uniform Commercial Code. I did that on December 5th. Right after I filed for that, I'm going to say probably within days, I started getting all these letters from all these different companies that want to print documents for you, and it's New York State Department of State Certificate of Status. And what they claim when they send you these notices is that you have to pay them to get this copy. I didn't know I didn't have to, so I'm like, all right, who's the cheapest one? I bought into it, $87.50. And they said you need this in order to go to your bank to set up your bank accounts and change them over. If you already got a bank account set up, change it over to the LLC. So I got it. I paid $87.50 for this one piece of paper. That's all it is. One piece of paper. A certificate of status. Well, I took it to the bank, not knowing, hey, I was told you guys need this in order to change my business over to an LLC for the bank account. And they're like, yeah, no, that's not really what we need. We need the original filing paper, the filing receipt, which is what I've got right here. So this is the filing receipt. And then they said, okay, but we also need your articles of organization. Well, if I go to page 2 of that, I have my articles of organization. But we also need a copy of that original one you just had in your hand. And I'm like, all right, well, I switch over and I go to page 3 of this one. And I've got the seal from the state of New York. There you go. I didn't need to spend that $87.50. Actually, it was the biggest waste of money I've had to play with so far on this one. Mind you, my accountants are over $4,000 a year. But that's the whole group. 1-800-ACCOUNTANTS is my tax advisor, is my accountant, is my lawyer firm for making sure everything I'm doing is 100% legal. But I had to get that out there because that's just fascinating. Alright, so once you get through this, now the filing fee for New York State for an LLC is $200. And then to get the copy I just showed you, that's a certified copy, that's $10 more. So for $210 all in, you are now classified as a legal LLC entity with exceptions. To get past those exceptions, you have to put an article in the newspaper for 6 consecutive weeks, and it has to be in 2 separate newspapers. And the state told me, well, you go to Cortland County Clerk, because I live in Cortland County, New York. You go to the Cortland County Clerk, and they have a form you fill out, and they'll tell you what papers to put it in. So I went. Betsy Larkin's our local county clerk. I'm a good friend of hers. She recognized me. We both said hi to each other, but I didn't deal with her. I dealt with a different clerk in the office. And when I showed her what I was doing, she's like, yeah, no, that's all state related. And I pulled out the paper and I says, but look, right here it says, it's you. That's the Cortland County Clerk's office that is supposed to tell me what I'm doing and how to do it and stuff. And she's like, yeah, we don't really have anything to do with that, but I can tell you this much. It has to be 6 consecutive weeks in a daily newspaper. And then it can be 6 consecutive weeks in a weekly paper because we only have one daily paper, the Cortland Standard. Alright, fine. So what weekly papers are you considering? And she was like, well, the Binghamton Press, or there's one in Syracuse. And I'm like, yeah, they're both 40 miles from where I live. I said, well, what about the Shopper? That's like 20 minutes drive from here. Oh yeah, that's a weekly paper. Alright, good. I'll do that one. So I left. I get down to the Shopper to find out that, yeah, they will file in their paper whatever you ask them to do, but they have no idea what it is you're supposed to have to give them to put into the paper. So I'm like, all right, well, can you just pull up a couple examples of what other people have done so I can look at them and figure out which one's going to be best for me? And they did. And so I filled it out and I changed the name, of course, to Dollar Seed LLC. And I changed the filing date to 12/01. Oh, that was a funny part too. I filed on 12/5. The state approved it on 12/1, which is really ironic. I hadn't even filed it by the time they approved it. But I think that's just so they can keep track of everybody easier by making it all on the first of the month. That would be my guess. But anyway, I digress, as people say. So she brings me out a couple copies and I change all the information on it to what it needs to be for me. And I hand it back to her and I says, all right, I need to have this in for 6 weeks, and then I need at the end of the 6 weeks a signed affidavit stating that it was in the paper. And she's like, yeah, we're used to doing that. And I'm like, okay, cool. $229.20 later, I got it in the paper. That's a weekly paper. So now I'm on my way back to Cortland to go to the Cortland Standard. Now I'm thinking to myself, okay, well, if that's $229.20 over there, I'm looking at probably $1,400, $1,500 local for this one to go in the paper. So I go to Cortland Standard, walk into the office, hey, how you doing, blah, blah, blah. And I find out that Cortland Standard doesn't do anything in their own offices anymore. I had to reach out. Let me pull this up real quick. I got it right in front of me. I had to reach out to the website, quickadcreator.com, which is part of NewYorkNewspapers.com. You go in there and you say, okay, I want to file for an LLC. It takes you directly to the form. You fill out the form. You tell it what day you want it to start, which for me would be next Monday. And that was $26. I was like freaking out. I was like, okay, this is going to hurt. I'm using a credit card because I haven't got the money in my pocket. And I'm like, yeah, this one's gonna hurt. It's gonna be like $1,400-1,500. Now it's $26, and I'm like, what? So that was a plus. All right, so now I got it going in both papers on Monday. And one thing I will say is that because I'm gonna have to take a paycheck now, is that you need to have a federal employer identification number. And because I'm gonna be taking a paycheck, if you're in New York State, you also have to have New York State unemployment insurance, which you have to pay for yourself, and you have to have New York paid family leave. For me, that was a pretty good no-brainer. I just went to it's actually New York State Disability Benefits and Paid Family Leave. I do mine through the New York State Insurance Fund. It's about $780 a year, give or take. Yeah, it's acceptable. It's just another fee you got to pay to play. So I've got that going on. Now, one thing I will say is when you do this stuff, you want to make sure that any paperwork you get from anybody, your workman's comp company, they need to make sure that they have the employer identification number listed, and they have to make sure they spell your name properly and your business name properly. Now, if you change it from like $C to $C LLC, it doesn't change the policy. Everything stays the same. But you have to make sure that your employer identification number is proper on it, or even is on it. I got it before I had any employees, so I didn't even have an employer ID yet by the time I did my insurance. And then with New York State Insurance Fund, they spelled my name wrong, and I never picked up on it until they started telling me, well, you owe us money for this. And it was a lot of money. And we're talking thousands between the two of them. Between New York State Workman's Comp and New York State Insurance Fund's mess up, New York State was trying to get $26,000 out of me, and I'm like, I'm already paying all these other bills. I can't afford that, and I don't know why I should have to. And I finally got it all settled out, and they were like, yeah, okay, whatever, we're good. But you have to have all that as well, because if you take a paycheck, you have to be able to pay the taxes on it or whatever. All right, so now that I got all that out of the way, I've been doing payroll now. This is my second year doing payroll. I have 4 full-time employees and 2 part-time employees up till now, besides myself now. I guess I'm going to be another full-time employee. But I was doing payroll through ADP. ADP was charging me anywhere from $55 to $65 per week. And it adds up. It adds up quick. And I was like, yeah, I need to do something. I need to change something. So I reached out. I went to paychecks.com, spelled with an X, not CKS. And they have a company called Sure Payroll. And I was like, all right, what are your fees? What do I get? I'll be honest with you, Sure Payroll is much friendlier, much more advisable. They know what's going on. They can say, you want to give a bonus check, we'll teach you how to do it so that your employee can get the full bonus and taxes come out above and beyond or whatever. And they're just there. They can talk to me and they can tell me what's going on. And to be honest with you, I really like working with them. They file almost all the paperwork that's needed. They missed 1 quarter for me, and that was when I first started working with them. And I'm not too sure if maybe they missed it or if that was supposed to be an ADP payment that was supposed to be taken care of that wasn't. But it doesn't matter. It's not a lot of money. But just a heads up, you know, if you really want to get your business growing and you're in New York State, you got a ride ahead of you. Just hang on. Play the games. Now, I use 1-800 accountants. Like I say, they're expensive. They're over $4,000 a year. And every little thing you add on, like filing for the LLC, that was a little bit of extra money. You know, there's always going to be that little thing. But if you're making the money that can support you to make you want to do this, like over $80,000 net profit per year, I highly recommend taking the trip, going on the ride, and just getting it done. Save yourself a lot of money. Now, this is another part about the filing for the S-Corp, is that after we figure out what the net profits are, after all payroll, including myself, which isn't going to be cheap, any money that's left in the company can be divided up in dividends. And during the dividends session, I'm going to get 80% back automatically. I can't give up any portion of the business. I own 100%. But my girlfriend, who's also the operations manager, will get 20% of all profits we make for that portion of the year. she'll have to pay taxes on it, of course, because it's not deducted like a payroll check, but it could be a pretty significant amount by the end of the year, depending on how much money she spends, because she spends more than I do. But, you know, well, I can't say that. I got a $15,000 embroidery machine sitting behind me. I can't really say she spends more than I do, because that's another part of the business now. But, I mean, she's going to make profit, and that's a profit that has to be taxed after. I'm going to make a profit. That's profit that has to be taxed after. So it's something to say, okay, well, maybe before it gets time to file our taxes and stuff, maybe like at the beginning of the year, we should both be saying, okay, we'll take X number of dollars extra out per payroll and just set it aside. If it gets used, it gets used. If it doesn't get used, you get it back. But you don't want to leave yourself hanging to where at the end of the year you owe $30,000 to the IRS. I'll be honest with you. I've been there and done that a couple times now, and it's not a good feeling. It's not a good feeling at all. But anyway, that's my talk for you guys tonight. I'll talk to you again on another one. Catch you later.